Um, my name is Sydney Gazarian, and I'm the Strategic Campaigns Director at the Labor Network for Sustainability. And I am so happy to be here with you all today because honestly, we need each other more than ever. As I'm sure you know, federal workers are on the front lines of defending against the Trump administration's dismantling of our civil services and workers' rights, and they're under extreme attack. And I don't think I'm mincing words when I say that this is an existential risk, especially when it comes to addressing the climate emergency we are currently facing, and that's only getting worse. But the Trump administration's priority is clear: helping corporations do whatever they want, no matter the cost. And I think we take for granted that it's the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, that protects us from corporations poisoning our air, our water, and our environment. I think we take for granted that every day, thousands of dedicated EPA workers are standing up to big business and cleaning up toxic waste, enforcing the Clean Air Act, and facilitating the transition to clean energy. I live in Los Angeles, which you might know, you might have seen in the news, was recently devastated by wildfires, and a lot of lives and homes were lost. And it's not Trump cleaning up the toxic debris, and it's not Musk, it's EPA workers. And we need them doing this crucial work. So today we're going to hear from workers and union leaders from AFGE Council 238, which represents EPA workers across the country. We're going to hear about the work they do and how the Trump administration's attacks on them are affecting them, and how they're standing up against the attacks on our civil services and how we can help. And while they've been doing the critical work of the EPA, our speakers today have also been on the front lines of fighting back. Federal workers, along with the EPA, have been rallying, lobbying, and taking action in DC all week. And we're very lucky to have them here with us today. So please make sure that we're respecting their time. So just make sure that you keep yourself muted on the call, just so that we can make sure that we're listening to the speakers themselves. If you're, not doing that, if you're being very loud and boisterous, unfortunately, I'm going to have to boot you. I don't want to, but that's just going to be the way it is. And just make sure that we're being respectful and really demonstrating solidarity here today. There is a Q&A function, and we're hoping to get to questions at the end of this, after we hear from all of our panelists. So go ahead and submit your questions in the Q&A function. I also want to thank our co-sponsors today, which includes AFGE Council 238, Labor Network for Sustainability, PEER, Jobs with Justice, Climate and Community Institute, and Greenpeace. And let's just keep in mind that we're up against a formidable opponent, and it's going to take all of us to win. And I wish I could say that there was one quick way to beat this, but it's going to take a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. This week, as I said before, federal workers and EPA workers, in addition to doing the critical work that they do, we're in DC rallying, lobbying, and taking action to defend their jobs and the critical civil services that we depend on. So we're going to need to escalate in a lot of different ways. But the first action that I want you to do is actually contact your rep. And I know people say that a lot, but actually our reps are susceptible to pressure, and we have to keep the pressure on them at all time. So we're about to drop a link in the chat, the bit.ly defend EPA workers. It's from the Climate Action Campaign. And it's going to allow you to directly email your representative to tell them that, you want them to stand up and defend EPA workers too. So again, thank you so much for being on this call. I'm so excited to hear from our speakers today. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get straight into it. We're first going to hear from Joyce Howell. Joyce Howell is the Executive Vice President of AFGE Council 238 and was the Chief Negotiator for Council 238's collective bargaining agreement, ratified this past June. Before serving as the Executive Vice President, Joyce worked as an attorney enforcing RCRAC hazardous waste law. So thank you, Joyce, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Sydney, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for joining us and listening to what we have to tell you about what's going on at EPA. So I wanted to first talk about what the EPA landscape looks like right now. We have a lot of things going on. You've heard in the press what's going on in different agencies, but let me give you the details about what's going on at EPA with regard to the Trump administration's policies and how they're being implemented against EPA workers. AFGE represents about 8,500 EPA employees nationwide. That consists of everyone from PhD scientists and attorneys down to admin. We have people that do all kinds of functions, and you're going to hear a little bit about some of the things that we do, because we often say that when we are successful, we're invisible. You don't know. When we're successful, you forget that there's an EPA. You just enjoy the things that we are able to provide you in terms of clean air and clean water and clean land. So first off, I guess the first hit that we took was that the DEIA executive order resulted in the administrative, 3 individuals in our bargaining unit being placed on administrative leave. Next, that was expanded to the environmental justice folks, and there were 168 employees in our bargaining unit initially put on administrative leave last Thursday. This week, another 3 were added, I think on Tuesday of this week. So about 171, we lost 170 people to administrative leave. Probationary employees, and you've probably seen the headlines as probationary employees are being terminated nationwide in all the agencies. Ours haven't yet. We expect it might be today. It might be Tuesday. It's imminent. There were 1,141 employees identified as being probationary. And to explain what that means, it's new hires, people that have been here for about 1 year. And you're not considered a full EPA employee until you've basically completed that 1-year trial period. And so that's why they're easy to target for removal from federal service. You've probably heard about the fork. We call it the fork. That's the offer that was made to people to go on administrative leave till September and leave federal service. The number of people that accepted that offer at EPA, there's a range. We are kind of going with the number of 600, and that's about 4% of our workforce of 15,000. Also, what's about to come on is there's an EO reduction in force that was issued this week as well, I believe on Wednesday. And we are looking probably, I think the target that's been set by Dodge is to go, let's see, 1/3 to 50% reduction in the number of EPA employees. In addition, the reconciliation bill for the budget in Congress that is set for March 14th. The majority is looking for a way to pay for making the very generous billionaire tax cut permanent. And to do that, they have to offset it with trillions of dollars of cuts in other parts of the budget, including in that are the earned benefits of federal employees that will affect our health insurance, our retirement benefits, and other types of things that are things that make it attractive to be in federal service. And then I guess you probably also heard that there was an order rescinding telework and remote work, and that has its also effects as well. Last week, a number of us were visiting members of Congress and their staff. We were basically talking to them about what's going on. I was surprised to find out that we are their source of information. They don't have a lot of information about what's going on in the agency and how it's affecting EPA employees directly. Even these numbers that we gave them, they were unaware of the actual numbers. And when we asked them, we asked them, okay, well, what are you doing? They basically say, it's on you. It's on you. They're looking at the unions, they're looking at the public to push back and bring the pressure. And so I'm glad you're all here today to kind of learn how we can make that happen. So thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Joyce. I really appreciate that. Our next speaker is Holly Wilson. Holly Wilson is the president of AFGE Local 3347, representing approximately 1,000 EPA workers in North Carolina from the offices of Air, Research and Development, Finance, Chemical Safety, and Pollution Prevention. She comes from the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, where she worked on outreach and engagement supporting the Clean Air Act. So thank you, Holly. You can take it away.
Okay, thank you, Sydney. So as Sydney mentioned, I am located in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. We've got a beautiful campus. We have 5 major program areas there. We have the Office of Chief Financial Officer, where we are responsible for budgets, contracts, and grants. Some of our folks there in that shop are feeling really, really awful about not allowing the flow of grants from the IRA program to be disseminated like they're supposed to be. And they're also being told that they can't speak to grantees about that. So the lack of ability to provide customer service and a standard that we would like to provide is being affected. We also have the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. The Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards does about 80% or the lion's share of regulations across EPA. So they're responsible for setting standards, for making sure that we don't have too much emissions. They're also responsible for working with the states and locals regarding their air quality. We also work with tribes to help them with their air quality management programs. One of the programs out of the air quality planning and standards that you're probably most familiar with is our Air Now. And if you've all have just watched one weather report on the news during the summer, you would see if it's a green day, red day, or orange day. And so that's basically telling you if it's okay to go out and go for a jog or for a run. You know, if you have asthma and it's an orange day, we'd say, you know, may want to hold off and do something inside or after the sunset. So that's one of our big flagship programs. You may also, if there's anyone in the West Coast that upper Pacific that's burning wood, you know, we are also just out there helping people to burn so that you don't have all of that soot and smog in the air. We have an Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention, and they're responsible for making sure that flame retardants are in things like sofas and curtains so that if there's a fire that your house doesn't go up in smoke. They're also responsible for pesticide registrations. So things that happen in your everyday life that you may not know about, we are on the front lines of that. Our research and development folks are developing cutting edge and leading research and making sure that our regulations are based in sound science. We also have the National Computing Center, which is huge. We're able to do models and scenarios of natural disasters, or if a chemical were to be emitted, we can do models and see what we would need to do to rectify that. So we do a lot of important work here at RTP. And so to lose anyone in those areas would definitely impact the American folks, American people. I want to say that our attendance in terms of dues paying has increased over 120%. Our numbers are just skyrocketing. People want to be a part of the union. They're putting their money where their mouth is and actually joining. We've seen a lot of engagement. So we've got new people coming in saying, what can I do to help? And then us as a local are doing more and more engagement, whether it's around mobilizing, whether it's around providing services. We do new employee orientation. We're doing a webinar around retirement. So we're seeing a lot of action. People are really nervous, but people are really upset also. They feel like they came to the federal government with a promise for stability, to be able to implement the mission, and now that is being the government is reneging on their promise. So that's a real issue. We are afraid with all of these cuts that we're not going to be able to bring our best and brightest to the federal government, because the federal government is not keeping their word. So we expect after all of this it to be really difficult to recruit folks. We're not going to have the same flexibilities that people have come to enjoy. So when we think about all of the things that are coming out of us, we really need to think about the implications of all of these actions and what it's going to mean for a future EPA, and how that is definitely going to affect the services that we provide to the American people. Um, so with that, I will stop, Sydney, and wait for questions and answers.
Thanks so much, Holly. If you have questions and answers, you can submit them using the Q&A function on the Zoom call, and we'll answer them at the end. Right now, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next speaker, who is Justin Chen. Justin is the president of AFGE Local 1003, representing EPA workers in Texas, and second vice president of AFGE Council 238, representing EPA employees across the country. During his day job, Chen is an inspector and enforcement officer working to enforce the Clean Air Act and other important things. So thank you so much, Justin. You can take it away.
Wonderful. I hope I'm coming through clearly. Hey, and I just wanted to say thank you everybody that's coming onto this call, both as EPA workers as well as also our allies here. It's inspiring to see how many people have been able to take their time off during their lunch break to come and listen to our stories. Essentially, as Holly was saying, there's just so many functions of our agency that are incredibly important to the way of life within this country and making sure that people are safe. And I just want to let it be clear, the EPA is a part of it, but the entirety of the federal civil service basically are public servants. And as servants, basically, we serve you. We serve the citizens of this country. And it's under attack by billionaires. It's very obvious what is going on over here. They basically want to treat the rest of us just as their own playthings, as their servants, essentially, returning us back to a way, way worse time where you had no voice in your democracy, more or less. And these attacks on public service basically mean they just want to privatize everything. They want to make it so that every flow of any amount of money or resources has to go through them instead of being democratically accountable through your government, essentially. So thank you all for being here to be able to listen to us and to be able to be willing to take some action going forward from here. The first step, of course, was coming to this webinar if you haven't done anything else at this point, learning a bit more about the civil service, about the EPA, and about what we do. One of the things about our work is that if we're doing our jobs properly and you have the ease of mind, essentially, that you don't have to be concerned about the air you breathe, the water you drink, or being poisoned by the land that you live and play on, essentially, then we are doing our jobs, more or less. So what are we going to ask of you all to do from here on forward? Well, one of the first steps to be done, essentially, is to reach out to your lawmakers and your representatives, especially if you live in a area that is controlled by the Republican Party, quite frankly. You need to demand of them what is going on, what is happening to your public goods and services. Ask them questions as to where the money is flowing, where basically what is the plan going forward when there are no more inspectors to be able to keep billion-dollar companies accountable for the pollution they release into your water, into the atmosphere and such? Who's going to take care of these things? Who are going to do the chemical analyses basically to make sure that, like for example, Los Angeles, my hometown where I was originally born, as mentioned, went through those terrible wildfires. So did Maui about a year ago or so. you know, to allow people to return back to those, to their property, to where they lived, essentially. You have to be able to take soil samples. You have to be able to see that it's safe, that people can actually rebuild and actually have some amount of remediation as well, and in preparation of, the climate change that we're dealing with now, the reality for which things are changing going forward. So please do reach out to your lawmakers and demand some answers and action when it comes to the gutting of the civil service. We also challenge you to reach out to 5 other people within your social sphere, be it they family or friends, to do exactly the same. Encourage them to come out to webinars like this so that they can learn where their tax dollars are going and how it's being misspent essentially right now, as far as how the Congress budget and the executive work. As we all know from Schoolhouse Rock, Congress basically appropriates money and then the executive is supposed to spend it on public goods and services like the EPA, like the CFPB, all these kinds of services essentially. And now what we have right in this current time is basically a tyrant who is more or less stating, hey, I can do whatever I want to whomever I choose to do so. And I can also refuse service to the citizens of this country. And that's not the democracy that we built. This is not the democracy that thousands of people have given up their lives for, and so that we can have the freedoms that we enjoy and the lives that we enjoy at this time. And we expect exactly the same and better living standards for our children going forward. So please do reach out to your family and friends, get them involved, get them engaged, have them also contact their lawmakers, and also participate in a whole host of events that will be coming on, you know. Um, you can also write your representatives as well, but we also want you to show up to their district offices demanding answers in the town hall meetings that they'll be hosting, especially as they go into recess. I believe the Congress is going to be in recess next week, so you'll have a whole host of town hall potentials to show up for and to ask questions about what's going on in the civil service. Additionally, other things that are going on, we have a great deal of allies also within the labor movement. For example, on Saturday in downtown Dallas, here where I live right now, we're having a rally with the AFL-CIO and other allies basically to talk about the spending cuts and the attacks on the civil service and how they basically affect all workers. Right now, the National Labor Relation Board does not have a quorum. That means basically within private industry, there is going to be no enforcement mechanism for contracts for workers and their union. So this is a major issue for everybody, the entire working class that's involved, anybody that relies upon a paycheck to live their lives. So look out. If you're in a union, reach out to your union leadership, ask them how they're getting involved, how they are supporting civil workers essentially in making sure that the solidarity is bound between regardless of us being public employees or private employees. Additionally, you're going to hear some more details from Maria Owens Powell about our own additional actions that will be taking place next week too. So all I want to say at the end of this is that ultimately the people that are going to save us are ourselves. We have to rely upon each other. We have to get the word out, and we have to plan and take action at this time. And thank you all for coming to this webinar to hear our stories and to plan to take action. And let's win this. If we stick together, we're going to be able to do this. It's going to be a tough road, but in fact, I think something stronger and more beautiful may come out of this at the end as long as we hold together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Yes, we need solidarity more than ever, and we need to take action more than ever. So please, if you haven't already, you can do it right now. Contact your reps. We'll drop a link into the chat if you haven't done it already, and start planning actions for next week. I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, Marie Owens Powell. Marie has been president of AFGE Council 238 since December 2021 and Local 3631 president before that. Prior to serving as council president, Marie was an underground storage tank inspector and compliance officer at EPA Region 3 in Philadelphia. Thank you so much for being with us, Marie. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for having me and for putting this webinar together. I want to thank each and every one of you on here right now for taking the first step in supporting EPA workers and asserting your commitment to human health and the environment. As Sydney said, I am Marie Owens Powell. I am president for Council 238. Prior to taking this position, I was an underground storage tank inspector out of the Region 3 offices of EPA in Philadelphia. A little bit of background about me is I come from a blue collar union family with ties to IBEW, ILA, CWA, and the operating engineers. So union was an obvious choice for me. When I would hear the stories of family members, especially the older family members, my father and my grandfather, uh, talk about the fights that they had with their unions. And then when I started doing our union work, I felt so lucky. We didn't have these type of fights. Like they had to really fight. Well, I guess now's our time because we have to really fight. I want to be honest with you. Our employees are scared. Council 238, I think Joyce mentioned earlier, represents over 8,500 workers of EPA across the country. That's more than half of EPA's workforce. I, along with Council 238's leadership, serve as their collective voice, but we do need your help. Join us and make AFGE Council 238's voice even louder, even stronger. Please help us make the voices fighting for clean air and clean water even more powerful. You heard a little bit so far. We've met with our representatives of the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle. We have gone into Democratic offices, independents, and Republican offices. And we have told them what us, the EPA workers, do day in and day out. We've filed several lawsuits and continue to explore legal and other administrative options. We've had rallies while we were in DC this week, and we will plan and I'm sorry, we are planning to have rallies around the country at several of our regional offices. We're also planning other actions to show solidarity. We've increased our membership by over 2,000 people in the past 4 years, with at least half of that joining in the past 6 months. But we still need your help. Probationary employees are being targeted by this administration, as I'm sure you've heard in the news. EPA originally provided a list of over 1,100 probationary employees, including scientists, engineers, administrative staff, attorneys, and IT specialists. This list was wrong in many ways. Some folks were included on the list who were not probationary at all, and others were left off of the list. We have been trying every day to get an updated, corrected list from the agency to no avail. I either get no response or I am told we'll see. We're looking for it. I fear our probationary employees may be dismissed as soon as today. These are people who have applied, gone through the interview process, background checks, and onboarding. Many have relocated their families to be near their dream jobs, only to be told, no, thank you. We don't need you, regardless of how smart, efficient, and great you really are. When and if we find our probationary employees are dismissed, we will be standing up for probies the next business day. This will be a united effort to wear black to the office to demonstrate mourning the loss of the probationary employees. And we will be getting up from our workspaces and walking around our building, united, together to show solidarity with our probationary employees. And we ask that you join us. Following this webinar, we will email you details when and if our probationary employees are fired. Council 238 is pursuing all legal and administrative options to protect our people. And we're asking you to please be vocal about what EPA means to you. And in case you're not sure what EPA means to you or what EPA has done of late, I have a few questions for you. Who are you going to call when there's time to clean up wildfires and flooding? Who are you going to call when there are hazardous accidents, train derailments, or fish kills? Who are you going to call for sewage backups and follow-up water sampling? Who's going to maintain air now monitoring? Who are you going to call with pesticide safety questions? And who's going to oversee the redevelopment of brownfields in your community to increase property values? When you don't think about EPA workers, that means we're doing a good job. Now is not the time to sit idly by. Collectively, we are stronger. I truly believe, as Justin said, we can change the course of how things are moving. We can do this. We are asking you to get involved. Keep abreast of EPA Council 238 issues at our website, afgecouncil238.org. And if I think someone can throw that in the chat for you. We will be making announcements there. We will be sharing our press coverage, which has been substantial. And we will be announcing different acts of solidarity that you can participate in. I think you've heard earlier, we're asking folks to contact their representatives, and there's also a link in the chat on how to do that. I do want to point out, since there are several agency employees on this webinar, be sure you do this on your own time and your own equipment. But we challenge you to reach out to your representatives every single day and reach out to those across the aisle. Reach out to those Republicans in office every day. Also, challenge 5 family members or friends to contact their representatives daily also. The more noise we make, the more we will be heard. Share the recording of this webinar. As you heard in the very beginning, this webinar is in fact being recorded. We will be posting it on the AFGE Council 238 website. If you need to see it there, you can direct people to our website. Sharing this webinar where people who couldn't make this webinar today can jump on and hear bits and pieces of what we do. As I mentioned earlier, join us to stand up for probies. We will send additional information to you about that. If you are located in the vicinity of one of our EPA offices, come over, join us. The more the merrier. The plan is to walk around the building outside, so access should not be an issue. And if you are planning to come, coordinate with the local leadership of AFGE in those locations, because we want to hear from you during this act of solidarity. And finally, we ask that you patronize businesses that support labor. For example, whenever we're traveling, I always go onto the fairhotels.org, and it tells me which hotels are union hotels, which hotels that maybe union hotels have a current dispute going on. It's just yet another way to stand up to the billionaires who are trying to take control of our country on the guise of democracy. What they're actually trying to do, as Justin said, is change the course of our country. We need to stand up. We need to stand up now, and we need to be united and be united now in making this change. Thank you. Sydney?
Thank you so much, Marie. I really appreciate that. If you haven't already, make sure that you are contacting your rep using that form. Start planning actions for next week. And as Marie said, actions are imminent, and we're going to follow up probably very soon with actions following this email through the RSVPs that we received to let you know how you can take action regarding the upcoming potential fires. We're going to transition into Q&A now because it sounds like people have a lot of questions and we want to make sure that they're answered. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Cantello, who is the president of AFGE Local 704, and she is going to facilitate the next section. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, hi, everybody. So happy that you're all here. Let me just go on to the first question really quickly. For those of us who live in DC, who can we contact since we don't have congressional representation?
Well, you
I would
actually
just
have
like
a
to say
you
that I
actually have-
heard,
yeah.
oh, go ahead, Joyce, what?
Well, I was going to say you actually have a congressperson.
Yes,
You can
Eleanor
contact
Holmes Norton.
Yeah, that's right.
So please work with her. She's very powerful. She has committee chairmanships or chairpersonships. So she'd be a good person to go to try to put pressure, apply pressure. The next thing that someone's asking is, have your IT systems been compromised? Yes, they have.
We've
Who would like to answer that? Go ahead.
Sure, I'll jump in. We have heard reports of that. We don't have any concrete evidence of that. I can tell you when I am on the agency computer, something strange happens all the time. The screen turns completely black, and then there's like this bright green line. I think it has small text on it, and then it goes back to normal screen. That never happened before the past, say, week or so. What does that mean? I'm not an IT expert. I don't know, but we have heard that there's been various softwares installed.
And maybe the question also goes to have the Dodge people being around. We understand that they were in one of our regions asking about contracts, and we're looking to interview some of the employees. So, you know, they are at the agency, if that's your question. They're here.
Thank you, Joyce and Marie. The next question is, what are the possible outcomes of class action lawsuits appeals for terminated employees?
Gosh, if I knew that, I'd be a rich woman.
Yeah, I could speak to it a little bit. Yeah.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Well, the federal labor statute covers federal employees, and that is your first stop. And it pretty much governs it. The courts have been very consistent that, you know, for the most part, employees that are federal employees are covered by the federal labor statute. So that might, I don't want to say, I always like legal theories, you know, I always, you know, take a crack at it, but I would say that's kind of where you'll be limited to.
Joyce, just to backtrack a second, I see something interesting in the chat. Somebody, after I reported what's happening with my computer, somebody who I don't know, I don't think they even work with us, said their computer's doing the same thing. So it's a little strange, but go ahead, Nicole, you can go back to the questions.
Thank you, Joyce and Marie. The next question is the union looking to push back on return to work guidance?
That's a great question. We're exploring all of our administrative and legal options as it relates to that. As early as this morning, I did file 2 grievances of the party. So one was related to the rescinding of telework agreements, and the other was related to the rescinding of remote work agreements. So we've already started that ball rolling.
And you also demand.
Thank you, Marie. The next question is, are we expecting all probationary workers to be let go Tuesday or today?
Yes. I don't know when you say, when the question is posed that way, all probationary workers, we don't have a sense of what that even means because, as I said, daily I ask for the updated list, the corrected list, and we do not receive it from the agency. It is my sincere hope that the agency is taking a look and fixing the problems on the list, those individuals who should have never been on the list from the beginning, and getting them off of the list. But if what's happened in other agencies serves as a guide for us, my expectation is that there will be a fair amount of probationary employees who are fired.
Thank you, Marie. Next person asks, any help of telework restoration? And if an employee goes part-time, will that put them at risk of getting fired more easily or not necessarily? And there's 2-part question there.
The second part, if you're part-time, you're more at risk in a RIF.
Did anyone who want to answer the question about?
Could you repeat it?
I can't really. It was about whether we were going to do anything about remote work or telework return to office.
Oh, and I think we already, I think I already responded to that we, filed grievances of the parties. And we also, are exploring all other options that we have, including, bargaining and legal options as well. One thing I think is important to point out as it relates to our probationary employees, we have probationary employees currently in the field, currently serving the cleanup efforts for the LA wildfires. If those individuals are terminated, if they are fired, that means that work stops. And the administration has already said you're not going to backfill. I think there's going for one person for every four. Again, I hate to repeat the question over and over, but who are you going to call when these people are gone?
Thank
Go
you,
ahead, Nick.
Marie. The next question is, wanted to ask how you organize field workers. I'm trying to figure out as a steward who is often by myself or with one other team member is working most of the day. Thanks.
I think we just use our electronic communication means, right? So we call people to Zoom meetings and get the word out by emailing and then collectively getting people together in a meeting, just something just like this.
Thank you, Joyce. The next question is, should we plan to file, this is a good one, should we plan to file individual grievances or wait for the union to file a grievance of the parties or an unfair labor practice for the RTO directive that rescinded our remote work and telework agreements in violation of the CBAs?
So the grievances of the parties were already filed this morning. I have confirmation the agency received them. So that part has already been taken care of, and you should just pay attention to your local leadership as it relates to the filing of individual grievances. You should be expecting to hear something from them in the next day or by Tuesday.
Thank you, Marie. The next question is, are you hearing that some veteran EPA employees were mistakenly classified as probationary because they have been in new positions for less than a year, but they've been at the agency much longer? And I think by veteran, the person means long-serving, not someone who previously served in the military.
Yes,
Yeah, but that was definitely something we heard that
Mhm.
individuals, and there are a lot of nuances around the rules relating to probationary employees. So that could be some confusion, but there were also definitely some folks who had many years of work history for the federal government. They came over to EPA in the same category of position and the same type of hiring authority, and they were listed as probationary. They're the ones that we're saying we think were in complete error.
Okay, thank you very much, Marie. This one I think might be beyond the folks on the call, but I'll just read it out anyway. Can you shed any light on how the California wildfire cleanup will be handled? I was in a meeting with the California Department of Toxic Substances Control, who usually handles such cleanup, yet it seems EPA has been holding separate meetings without including the DTSC. Is there any kind of coordination happening? I don't think the people here on this call are
I don't have
are
a
plugged
response
into
to
the
that.
absolute details. Yeah.
That is a tin of fish that we can't open, I think. I think Trump wants to have everything done in well, they said 30 days, like what, 2 weeks ago or so. Yeah,
All right.
no answers, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. The next one is, it looks like a comment, but I'm sure everyone here can respond to it. People in LA are very concerned about the proposed timeline of each phase of the cleanup operation. So I open the floor to anyone who wants to talk about how EPA could make that go faster.
Make it go faster.
Yeah,
Is that what you said?
yeah, I'll just say that we have, if the more people we have there, the quicker we're going to be able to clean up the toxic pollution from the LA wildfires. And when you're taking probationary employees or employees who worked for the EJ division who were stationed out there, and put them either on administrative leave or fire them, they will not be backfilled. You will have more difficulty getting a lot of those wildfire cleanup done.
I would add too, if they just stop all this nonsense and let people do their jobs, the work will get done. But this is one gigantic distraction as well.
Here's another question. Thank you, Joyce. Is AFGE taking any legal actions to help reverse the administrative leave orders?
So right now, much like the return to office, we are exploring all legal and administrative courses of action. On the surface, folks that are sent home on administrative leave have not been, and I'm using big air quotes, harmed. So there's really, it puts us in a precarious position right now because there's really nothing to grieve at this point. Joyce, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's not considered an adverse action under our contract. And so that's, our contract and the federal labor statute is where our recourse is. And under those two things, there's nothing there to act on yet, but we're watching the situation because I just wonder, for me, what I worry about is, well, what happens after administrative leave? You're on administrative leave for a reason. What happens next?
Justin, did you have something to say about this?
Yeah, so outside of the realm of litigation, though, we have been gathering allies within Congress basically to, at the very least, start asking questions in the form of letters being sent to Administrator Zelton, signed off on by congressional representatives and senators and such. I believe the Illinois delegation has already sent one, although they had questions regarding the probationary employees. However, I am currently working with a couple of lawmakers here in Texas, as well as the surrounding states, asking about concerns with regards to the administrative leave employees too, and their functions within the broader agency as well.
Thank you, Justin. The next question is, how are federal workers able to access unemployment benefits during these attacks?
That's very state specific. The unemployment rules and regulations are governed on the state level. So you would have to contact your state unemployment office to find out eligibility.
Thank you, Marie. The next question is, for community groups looking to apply for IRA-related funding from EPA, such as Thriving Communities EJ, the portals are still open, at least in Region 1. Are these still worth applying for? Do you think information shared in these applications will be used against community groups down the line?
That's kind of a loaded question because I think, is it worth applying for? Sure, you may get money. But we know the impact of the funding freezes that have happened. Grant funds were frozen, unfrozen, frozen, and then they were, quote, paused. And this has had some real impact on communities. There's one community that we heard about whose, individual electric bills went up $100 because the funding for the solar grant was frozen. Make no mistake, these local businesses, these local governments are not going to lose money. They're going to pass it on to their constituents. So I think that there's vulnerability there, but I would, of course, what the agency or DOGE does with information, nobody knows.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Marie, I was going to add to that. Should they apply? Absolutely, but we do know that the money is currently frozen per our folks here at RTP. And there is a real threat, a real risk, considering I call it the voluntary cyber breach that we have, or the permissive cyber breach that we've had with DOGE being able to just kind of plug and download information sensitive information to servers. So we don't know what they're going to do with that information. Hopefully, those decisions get turned around. The IRA money was sent to EPA. I mean, the agencies have the money. The concern now is not only them freezing, but with Doge having access to our systems, being able to go back and reverse the money that's already been distributed, and being able to pull it back. So it's just a word of caution. Hopefully the courts will intervene and that money will start flowing again, because the government's already in contempt for not allowing those grants to flow, those monies to flow. So we'll have to see. But we do know that money was allocated and it was given to the agencies. So
Thank you, Holly. The next question is this call intended to provide information to those federal workers on administrative leave? What is AFGE doing to advocate for those in this situation?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it again? I'm sorry.
Is this call intended to provide information to those federal workers on administrative leave?
Okay.
What is
Yeah,
EPA, what is AFGE doing to advocate for those in this situation?
Yeah, this webinar's intent was to raise awareness for our external partners and also for our internal employees as to what we do, we being AFG Council 238 and our locals, and also what we do, we being EPA employees, and how to help elevate our message and our voices so that we are heard and that everyday folks realize the input that AFGE, EPA employees across the country, the impact, I should say, they have on their lives. And Justin, I think you wanted to add something?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, while we were doing our lobbying earlier this week to lawmakers, we did bring up the plight of the administrative leave workers. But I think it's important now, if you are on administrative leave, to reach out to your own lawmakers, talk about your work, provide your stories to them, explain what it is that you did and why your lack of access to being able to do work is so incredibly detrimental to the public. Especially if you have any information with regards to like any grants that you oversaw or any other tasks that you did that are extremely important basically to the public. You just gotta you gotta get your story out there in front of lawmakers and potentially to the media as well. And if you wish to, reach out to your local president, that you may be that your union that you're part of, and we can do our best to help you get your story out there and try to build public support. Because ultimately it's about putting enough pressure on this administration that it's untenable to keep you out of work.
Thank you, Justin.
And Justin, and if I can just add, so not only your role in administering the grant, but what were those grantees getting money to actually do, right? We weren't just handing out money willy-nilly. If you were awarded a multi-million-dollar grant, you were providing a significant service to your local community and economy. So we'd like to know, what aren't those grantees going to be able to do as a result of not being able to continue to implement their projects?
Thank you. I want to quickly get through these questions. So the next one is AFGE planning on joining the lawsuit that other federal unions filed against the RIFs and probationary fires? I think that if there's going to be a national lawsuit that's done by AFGE, it will be decided in our AFGE national office. We would love to join those lawsuits, but those kinds of things are decided by our AFGE national office, and we don't have their answer right now. Okay, the next one is doesn't it require cause to dismiss probationary employees? If so, what is their recourse if they are dismissed?
Yeah, that's been a really hot topic because I think it's going to be, we've seen at other agencies that they've just blanketed their probationary employees with a form email. I think the regulations, the question goes to the heart of the regulation, that it contemplates a specific answer to a specific employee as to why they're being terminated. And the question is, what's the level of information that should be conveyed to the probationary employee? And I think that's something worth looking at. You're onto something there.
I'm going to try to get through these really quickly. Are there any risks to rescinding our telework agreements once we return to the office?
Are there any risks to?
Rescinding, yeah.
They've
Yeah.
been rescinded. I
They've
don't
been rescinded,
understand.
that's right.
Yeah.
What
ahead.
what are our remedies considering that MSPB is now down to 2 members, and the FLRA has been left with vacancies?
That's a real problem. And it's I think it's a problem for the entire federal labor movement, because if you take away, and this was a problem in Trump 1 as well. So I agree with you. There's a problem. It's probably going to have to be looked at by some at the national level of all the federal labor unions.
Justin, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to put out there, we're in unprecedented times, and unprecedented times require unprecedented solutions. That's why we need to be reaching out to as many people as possible, especially within the labor movement. And because this is going to affect all of us, the path forward is through solidarity among all workers, essentially, and the broader public. And that's the only way we're getting out of this pickle. So that's why we got to start building these bonds basically years ago, but now's the time, especially. So
Yeah.
that's
And
how
I
we move
would
forward.
add that we can still file grievances and have them heard by a third-party arbiter.
But it may not just all be a legal solution. I mean, we've kind of concentrated on our discussion, but I think part of this is to energize people to get out there, tell everybody who's going to hear, influence the upcoming election, yell and scream about this, show up in front, get down there to your regional office, get down there to your congressman, get in their face and say, our democracy is not going to be taken away from us. That's the message. That's the ultimate message. And what you're seeing here are symptoms of it.
Sydney, should we be wrapping up or?
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you to all of our speakers that joined us today. Nicole, do you want to share what our next steps are and just reiterate?
Yeah, in wrapping up today, I want to just note some follow-ups we had for you. First, write Congress, reach out to your family and friends to write Congress. Second, I wanted to note that the House will be in town next week. Go see them, go visit your representative. Senate will be in session, but the House is going to be in session, in town next week. Please reach out to them. Look out for our action for probationary employees. Reach out to your union leaders and patronize union businesses. So please, just wrapping up all the follow-ups we had for you. We so appreciate your attendance. Thank you for caring about the EPA and the people who work there. We are looking at some tough times ahead, and we need allies like you to help us figure out how to best combat everything coming at us. When I started at EPA, I had no idea that the agency would inspire such devotion in me. I was like everyone else who works there. Soon I got addicted to helping people and protecting human health and the environment. Person after person at EPA have told me the same thing. They thought they were coming to EPA for a few years, and before they knew it, they were there for 20 years protecting people. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Greenpeace, PEAR, Job for Justice, Climate and Community Institute, and especially the Labor Network for Sustainability. without who we could have not put on this event. Thank you so much, LNS. We really appreciate all your actions today and every day.
And we appreciate you, and we're going to fight with you. Thanks everyone for being here today. Really appreciate it. Look out and start escalating. Let's go fight.
Thank you so much, Sydney.